My name's Olivia, and I've decided to start a Booktube channel. So for my first video, I'm deciding to do the Booktube Newbie Tag, which is a piece of advice I've gotten from a lot of different websites and watched a lot of videos on. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably are in the Booktube community and decided to do this video pretty early on yourself. So I've got my list of questions in front of me. I've got my notebook with my answers in them. So let's jump into it. So question 1, why did you start this channel? I really want to get back into reading. I used to read so much when I was a kid, would be reading constantly. I would carry a book with me at school in between classes and read walking from the bus into the building or in between classes in the hall, which was pretty excessive, but I used to love reading so much, and somewhere between young adulthood and high school, I had just stopped reading completely. I didn't read at all through college, and it was something that I really wanted to get back into, but just didn't feel like I had the attention span for. And I feel like I'm in a place in my life now where I can pick this back up, especially with the pandemic and everything going on. I need an escape, and reading has been that escape for me. And so I really want to get back into reading. So for Christmas this year, one of the gifts I lovingly received was a Kindle, which was something I wanted for a while. I've heard so many people say that ebooks are a great way to get back into reading if you haven't been reading and you want to get back into it. So I got a Kindle, and I've been loving my #Kindle journey. I've read so many ebooks from the library, from NetGalley, and it's been a wonderful experience. So I would say it's been working, and to accompany that journey, I started a book blog. And my book blog, which is linked in the channel description if you want to check it out, focuses on recaps mostly of books that I've read, and I wanted it almost as a digital scrapbook, so I could look back on reading as a hobby that I've gotten into and feel like I've accomplished something. I can see the tangible digital proof of my reading and feel better about it. And so between that and this channel, I'm really hoping that that will continue to motivate me when it comes to reading. Question 2, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? This is a hard question for me because I don't know what my Booktube niche is. It seems like a lot of people have one, and I don't know if most people come in with that or they develop it as they go on. One of the ways that I feel like I'm different is that I don't read a lot of YA and fantasy or sci-fi. I definitely don't think those genres are bad. I just think a lot of booktubers that I've seen, especially larger creators, do read those genres and sometimes feature them very prominently on their channels. And that's not a goal of mine. I don't think I'm going to be reading a ton of works in those genres. So I think that is something that's different. No hate to those genres. If you love them, that's great, and I'm glad you found something that works for you. Question 3. What are you most excited for about this new channel? I've followed the Booktube community for a little bit of time now, not as long as some people I'm sure, but I really want to use this channel as a way to engage in the Booktube community and join the community, and I think that's something that'll be a really fun and rewarding experience. I don't engage in a lot of online communities, and so that's something that I think I would really like to do going forward. Question 4. Why do you love reading? I really love being transported to new places or new time periods or new societies. I'm really fascinated by that. One of the favorite genres that I like to read is historical fiction because I'm very interested to see how authors can blend modern social values with historical time periods and what they have to say and what that contrast looks like, and I really love getting to see that. So that's one of the reasons that I really love reading. I think also right now it's been especially exigent in my life because of the pandemic. I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. I need a form of escape. I need something to do with my time that keeps me from focusing on all the bad things going on outside in the world. I'm sure a lot of other people feel that way too. Question 5. What book or series got you into reading? So I distinctly remember this because I was in middle school. It was the Percy Jackson series was the first series that I read, like, cover to cover. I loved it. I didn't know anything about publishing or books or how any of that worked back then, so I would just, like, stalk my middle school library until the new book would show up on the shelf. And just loved that. And I still have a very, very soft place in my heart for that. I haven't kept up with the newer books that are coming out from Rick Riordan, but I really want to get back into those as part of my booktube journey. His content was so important to me when I was younger, and I really like how he aged up the series now, how it's like moved from a more sort of like middle grade place to now a more like older kind of YA place. I really also love his representation and diversity in his books. Was really refreshing to see back in the time frame when I was reading those as a kid. It was just something I'd never encountered before. Question 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I feel like I would really be curious to know like where they're at in their booktube journeys now versus when they started, how that's impacted their relationship with reading. I feel like I've heard a few people say that either through book blogs or booktube that the pressure to record videos and post them can sort of make it less fun, especially if they are doing it as a job. And I definitely want to enjoy my reading experience and not feel compelled to do it out of a sense of obligation. Like, I want to enjoy the experience, and so I really want to know how people further along in the booktube journey are doing that. Question 7. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I would say being on camera. I don't consider myself to be a super photogenic person. Public speaking will also be hard. I love talking to people and engaging with people, and so that's the reason that I think the community aspect of booktube will be really nice. But I'm not always the greatest at just putting myself out there. I also think the technology aspect of it might be a bit for me to overcome because I'm very technologically incompetent, but I do want to learn, and I don't know how steep the learning curve may be for that. So that's a little scary. But I've got some technological tools to help me, and, you know, obviously there's always a good YouTube tutorial for a lot of things. Question 8. When did you start reading? So I'm not sure if this means, like, when did you pick up reading as a hobby? So by the time I got to middle school, I had gotten really into the Percy Jackson series, and that really motivated me to read, pursue other books, and I read a lot of middle grade and YA books, but I loved them at the time. And that really kept me coasting through high school. I would say I really hit my reading slump around the time I got to college. I think I really struggled in some ways to adapt to having my own schedule and having to manage my time, and so reading was the thing that just kind of fell by the wayside and I didn't pick back up, especially since I was reading a lot for class. You know, reading textbooks for college is obviously a lot different of an experience than reading textbooks for high school, and so I think I was just sort of read out by that point. I didn't have the mental bandwidth to read for pleasure, which is really sad. As an adult, I got into reading just a couple of months ago. I really started in January, so that's been, January, February, March, April. About 4 months now of reading seriously, and I love it. I plan to keep going for as long as possible. Definitely want to avoid any reading slumps that I can. And so that's sort of been my when did I start reading journey. When did I start reading? For the first time when I was in middle school, I started reading and loved it, but sadly didn't keep up with it, and so about 4 months ago is when I started reading as an adult. Question 9. Where do you read? The answer is anywhere that I can read. So most often for me, that's reading in my apartment, just different rooms around my apartment. I love reading outside when I can read outside, which hasn't been often because the weather's been kind of cold lately, but I'm excited for it to warm back up and be able to just go and read in the park, on the weekend or something. Sadly, I can't read in the car, which is very sad. I get car sick. And so that's something that always frustrated me as a kid because my family took a lot of road trips and I could never read, so it was always a little more boring than I wanted it to be. Question 10. What kind of books do you like to read? I love to read historical fiction books, primarily. I also like contemporary fiction or general fiction. Really, I feel like the plot of the book and the characters just need to jump out at me for me to get into the book, and I can like a variety of things. I would say historical fiction is my main genre that I like, and within that, or I would categorize this next kind of subgrouping within that label. I love anything that's related to mythology. Basically, like The Song of Achilles is my perfect book, and I'm always searching that high until Madeline Miller releases another book. Question 11. What does your book collection look like? So I guess that depends if you're asking about my personal book collection or the book collection of my household. So my personal book collection is mainly ebooks that I keep on my Kindle, which is why I don't really have any bookshelves behind me, nothing too flashy in that area. My household's book collection looks a little bit different because my partner is an academic, and as such, my partner's research interests take up a lot of book space in our house, and academic books are not necessarily the most fun to talk about. So I would love to get back into reading physical copies of books. I've mostly been reading digital copies, ebooks on my Kindle because that's free and a cheap hobby is always great. It's also been easier to me to be able to read like anywhere on the go and not have to carry a physical book with me because my Kindle is obviously smaller. But I would love to expand my collection to more physical books at some point in time, and I hope I can really do that and expand and get back into reading physical books. I think I need to focus a little bit longer on the ebook journey so far before I commit to buying physical books, but I plan to do that at some point in the future. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to make more in the future.